Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Utility, Safety, and Environment Committee meeting for Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. The first item on our agenda is the matter of approval of the Joint Utilities Finance meeting minutes from November 25th, 2024, and January 13th, 2025. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next item on our agenda is the matter of revisions to Chapter 937 of Elyria Codified Ordinances, Sewer Use, Septic Tank Waste. Wastewater Assistant Superintendent Derrickott. Come on up. Oh, Shane, you're speaking on this? Okay. We have the two Shanes speaking on this.
All right, thank you, Chair, through you. So over the past year, we have been working on our renewable energy plan and our electricity and cutting those costs. Something that we had found that we were looking into is accepting fats, oils, and greases. Though we're not there yet for our digesters, we've looked into accepting septage from septic haulers. Yes. Oh. So we've looked at accepting septic haulers, and we've went to a few other treatment plants, and we think it's actually very viable for us to do so and could be an additional source of revenue for us. And we've also heard from the Lorraine County Health Board that there's quite a need for it. Right now, they're going other places, and there's nowhere actually in Lorraine County for them to be able to take the septic to. But in order for us to do so, we have to change the sewer use ordinance. And since this follows a lot of the pre-treatment standards, Shane Derrickott is actually taking over this initiative with the permitting and dealing with the haulers while I'll be overseeing the plant processes. So I'm going to pass it over to him.
Welcome. Thank you. Good evening. I just want to thank Amanda and the Law Department for helping me with the ordinance change. It's been since the Corzan days that I was here with them. But yeah, so in front of you, you have, so from the highlighted all the way down is completely new verbiage. And as Shane mentioned, this is just a small piece of the puzzle that we're looking to do at the treatment facility. And this is going to greatly change the landscape of Lorraine County. We're looking to accept residential only hauled waste. There are over a dozen registered with Lorraine County Public Health. We're in contact with them quite often, and they're really, really excited to get this up and running because I believe Huron and Sandusky are the closest, and then you got to go further east to Cleveland Southernly, so there's nothing in between. So as I mentioned, this is really going to change the landscape for Lorraine County. And at first, again, we're going to issue this as a pilot study, so we have just one company that we're going to work with. We're going to take samples, we're going to analyze it, we're going to watch our plant, make sure nothing interferes with it, and then open it up. So, but this is all just verbiage change, all new verbiage. The cost for a 3,500 gallon tanker, which is about typical, is going to be not to exceed $250. Anything more will be an additional 12 cents per gallon, and that is right in the middle of the market with Huron and Sandusky and Cleveland Southernly. So we're right in the middle. I believe that's a competitive rate. And then just to move on to the registered conditional permit packet, this is what the haulers will be given to fill out. It needs to be, every single line needs to be completed. A $25 cost. This will be a once a year cost per vehicle, per tanker. And they'll be issued a bunch of different guidelines. And again, all this is going to get sampled and monitored. And if we have an interference, to say it in simple terms, they're going to get kicked out. They're not going to be allowed back. So, but I can answer any questions anyone may have.
Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Madam Chair. So is it just commercial haulers?
Yeah, commercial, yep. So like Shane has a septic tank, holding tank, you know, we would accept that. We'd accept porta potties. Just residential waste, just what we treat 24/7 as we do now.
So
So-
motorhomes, RVs.
Yeah, we'd accept that. Yeah, it'd be residential.
Okay,
Yeah, mhm.
I'm good.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Derek Hyatt?
What are your,
Mr.
Mr.
Stewart?
Chair, so do you guys have any projections? Like maybe what, based on in between? I mean, some projections of what you think maybe this is gonna revenue?
Well, as we visited Medina, our old assistant superintendent went to Vermillion. He generates, I think, between $500,000 and $800,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
And Medina did 1.2 million dollars, and that's a lot of haulers. We don't,
Yeah,
you know, this is just going to be rolled out as a study at first, but there's a potential to really bring some income to the wastewater department and use that money for pumps and, you know.
How will you let other municipalities know that this is available for them to, to bring it to us? Like, are you going to advertise or?
Through you. No, we're not going to advertise yet. Actually, after the Pollution Control Board meeting today, we spoke with Ryan Tristano from the Health Department, and since he's in constant, frequent communications with a lot of these haulers as it is, he said that we're going to start, like I said, start slow, and then he'll actually get it out to them because we don't want it to feel that one of them got left out, or, we're only going to take it from them or not get it out that way. We had thought about the Chronicle, but as excited as the health department is, as well as a few haulers we've spoken to, I don't believe we will need to. And then he'll make sure he gets that out.
Okay. Mr. Pianowski?
Thank you, through you. The Health Department licenses septic haulers, and so we have a direct line to those people that are in that business. And so that's a good resource in order to communicate directly with those folks and let them know that we're available. I'm excited for this. Shane and Shane have brought this, yeah, I like saying that, have brought this forward, and we've talked about it over a couple of months to make sure that we're thinking through this, and they've done a good job of gathering information from other entities that are already doing this so that, we can learn from their operations. But I did tell them I want this rolled out as a pilot to make sure that we understand how it impacts our system, because we're introducing this into the wastewater system there at the plant, to make sure it doesn't throw anything off as far as our chemical balances and so forth. So we'll roll it out initially as a pilot, maybe tweak it a little bit based on those things that we learn, and then we'll roll it out further once we're more comfortable with it, and probably communicate directly with the folks that would need that type of service. Councilman Oswald's question about motorhomes is an interesting one. I don't know that I don't recall talking about that, but that might lend us to maybe a little bit of advertisement or something to that effect. But we'll talk about that further as we contemplate who our users might be.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
so the $250 fee, is that just payable by a credit card right up front? Is that how will that work?
It'll be by check. So we'll get the check at the wastewater department. We'll make a copy for us. We'll make a copy for the hauler. That will go down to the finance. And then we're going to have a separate line item for septic, revenue item, just specifically for this. So we know what we get in and how to track it.
I think this is great. Thank you, Shane and Shane, for your hard work. And we're looking forward to seeing how it comes out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since there's no more questions, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of revisions to Chapter 937 of Elyria Codified Ordinance, Sewer Use Ordinance, and this is an ordinance authorizing the said revision to Chapter 937. Can I get a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Davis, second by Mr. Oswald. Any additional questions?
Question.
Do you want an emergency? Okay. This is going to be emergency. Do you concur?
I concur.
Second concur. Thank you. It was moved and properly second. No other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Oh, The next item on the agenda is the matter of adopting Vision Zero and the Lorraine County Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. And we have Mrs. McKillis with us this evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Through you, Chair, tonight, we're requesting support of City Council by way of legislation for the Lorraine County Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. Back in February of 2023, the Lorraine County Public Health received a $200,000 federal grant as part of the new Safe Streets and Roads for All program. One of the requirements of this grant is the creation of a county-wide comprehensive safety action plan. So the Lorraine County Public Health has asked that communities throughout Lorraine County pass legislation to support this program so that we could utilize the program, the plan, and public comment and all the information gathered for future grants, future programs, and since Elyria is, one of the two biggest cities in the county, we're looking at, potentially, getting some of that revenue here in the city. Excuse me. I just need to give real quick, I need to thank the ladies at Public Health for putting this PowerPoint together. I did not create it, they did, but I pulled certain slides out of the presentation that I wanted to present to you tonight. Excuse me. So there is a need in the Lorraine County to create safer streets, roads, walkways, that type of thing for our residents. Between the years of 2014 and 2023, 207 lives were lost in crashes, and over 1,300 serious injury crashes took place throughout the county. And these were both on urban streets, like here in the city, and rural streets, like out in the townships. If you look at the chart just real quick, you can see that through the years of 2014, there was a peak at 2015, and then the crashes seemed to go down in 2019, but then they jumped back up in 2021. This is something that the 2023 grant that the health department received allows them to grab the data, come up with numbers, and then take those numbers, provide that information to our safety forces and our communities, and from there, we look at what areas need improvement. So Lorraine County has committed to a goal of 0 traffic deaths by 2040. That's a goal. Is it realistic? Some may say probably not, but if we have a goal and we work towards that, we would look at making improvements to our infrastructure. The ultimate goal is 0 deaths. You may have heard of the Vision Zero program. It started back in Sweden in the late 1990s. And it's spread throughout the world. The United States has grabbed onto it, and Lorraine County's jumped on board as well. The Comprehensive Safety Action Plan uses a safe system approach to lay the groundwork for this program. And the framework, as you may see around the circle, may be too small for those in the audience, but this process acknowledges that humans make mistakes, that the human body can only take so much as far as impacts. Redundancy in certain safety aspects is needed. We want to be proactive, and we want to participate and learn from past programs, past accidents, other countries. It's basically, again, it's a comprehensive program that takes into consideration a vast number of items. The planning process, as I mentioned, this grant was obtained in 2023. So in 2024, the Active Transportation Organization and the Safe Streets for All Steering Committee worked on public engagements, worked on one-on-one meetings with different stakeholders. We conducted online surveys and gathered information from all these components to come up with information that the study is going to provide. Now, the study area, again, included the entire Lorraine County. The urban area, which is in that map, is highlighted in the orange. When we look at different systemic programs, there is a difference, and you may have noticed on that earlier slide with the chart that there's a significant more crashes in urban areas than in rural areas. As I mentioned, we did have public engagement. I attended a public meeting at the Health Department in March of last year, where we had several residents, business owners stop in and basically put their 2 cents in what they think issues that they see out on the roads, what they are, where they're located. So we got a lot of good information from these public engagements. We also had online survey. I had sent out email back in May of last year inviting everyone, all our city employees and also all the people in the loop email to participate in the online survey. Now, from all the information, we came up with 3 priorities. Themes and actions are basically non-infrastructure related components. What we're looking at there is, education, demonstration projects, organization for changing, the mindset of certain things. We already know that speeding causes accidents. But there's, some people that it's still disregarded as to, hey, speeding's okay. Well, it's not. So there's quite a bit of education involved in this. There's infrastructure corridors. The infrastructure corridor, which I'll show on the next slide, involves over 30 corridors and 4 intersections throughout the county. And there are several corridors in the city of Elyria that are on the list. And then finally, the systemic practices. Those are practices that we've already started here in the city of Elyria. Road diets, for example, is one that's something that we'll be looking at throughout the county. We've already started again on Cleveland Street is one example, where he went from 4 lanes down to 3 lanes. Roundabouts, bike lanes, rumble strips, improving walkways, infrastructure-related work that may improve safety is one of the recommendations for this program. Now going to the City of Elyria list, we have several corridors. Now, again, these were recorded as input from the community last year. One of those is, and you'll see on here, Cleveland Street, which we've already gone through the process of doing a road diet. But there is part of Cleveland Street on the far east end, near the city limits that, we'll want to look at for any improvements. We have Lake Ave on here, 2nd Street, Middle Ave, East Ave, 57, West River Road, for pedestrians, East Ave, and part of the 57-303 corridor, and the 113 area. The Lake Ave, West Ave, I just want to mention one thing on that corridor. That's a corridor that we've already started working on a demonstration project, utilizing that part of that $200,000 grant that the Health Department received in 2023. We're looking at doing a road diet on a temporary basis, just to see how it works. That corridor between 113 and Lorraine Boulevard, 4 lanes, as you know, but we have cars that park on there. So the big issue is going to be, what can we do with parking? So that's an issue that we're going to end up having to tackle and study as we go into this demonstration project. And we're looking at kicking that off sometime this year. Every community, and pretty much every community, I shouldn't say every, but almost every community, including the townships in Lorain County, received one of these lists. Some of the townships may only have 1 or 2 roads on it, but it is a countywide program. And as I mentioned, that we are looking for support for this comprehensive safety action plan from council. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. McKillis. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Madam Chair. So first off, what are you asking for us, from us? And then second, are setting or up these plans or implementing them by doing this, will we get funding, grant money to help us pay for things that we're setting up and doing?
The goal of this plan is to come up with programs or projects and then use this plan as the basis or foundation for grant applications to get funding. So we would want to gear these projects to a point where it's realistic in getting funding. Now, we're going through transition right now with federal administration, so who knows how that's going to work out. But when we started this program, that was the goal. We applied for and received the $200,000 for the, we call it for short SS4A, Safe Streets for All. We got that grant. We're utilizing some of that funding for our demonstration project on Lake Ave. And then if that works out, then we'll use that demonstration, we'll use this plan to apply for funding through, could be through ODOT, it could be through NOACA, for funding to get that road diet completed at some point in time.
Mrs. Davis?
Through you, Chair. So this safety action plan is strictly for streets and not like sidewalks? Because people fall on the sidewalk and die all the time when they hit their head. So where does that come into play if we want to have a safe environment for no accidents or death in the area? Where do sidewalks come into play?
This plan covers vehicles, roads, bicycles, bicycle riders, and walkways, sidewalks, and pedestrians. Right off the top of my head, I cannot think of a plan that is included in here for pedestrians, but I know one of the coming back to this sheet right here, if you look at the bottom three, so East Ave, between Fuller going north to Depot Street, that's been cited as a corridor that could use pedestrian improvements. Now, part of that corridor is in the township, but if this is a project that would move forward, we would look at partnering, whether it would be with the county, the township, the health department, on doing improvements, whether it's sidewalks, maybe a multi-use path, something like that, that could extend the entire length of East Ave, pick up that southern portion that has no sidewalks whatsoever, and that way you would have infrastructure for pedestrians and bicyclists. Another thing that we've looked at under the systemic practices, funds that could be gathered from utilizing this plan from different funding sources could be installing pedestrian islands at very large intersections, or putting more pedestrian signals at signalized intersections. Could be even involve, I'm just throwing, ideas out, maybe a pedestrian bridge somewhere in order to get from one side of a highway to the other. I mean, so there's, it's not just roads, but we are looking at pedestrians and bicyclists.
Mr. Stewart?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. McKillop. So just a couple questions. So the priority recommendations, this is what you've put in thus far, what you think could be used for this potential grant that we'd be applying for, this priority list? Is that just something you guys put together for that?
This is the list that came from all the public comment that was gathered from the public meetings, the online surveys. These are just areas that we would look at to see what actual improvements would need to be done. Now, as I mentioned, Cleveland Street's on here from Broad Street, including East Bridge, all the way to the east city limits. Now, a big chunk of that's already been taken care of. We have new bike lanes, we have a road diet. So that section may not really need to be included in here, but again, this was put together last year, and some of the folks that provided comment on that, either maybe they didn't know what we were doing on Cleveland Street, or maybe the work had not started yet as far as the major road portion of the project. So, but this is a basis of what we're going to utilize to look at projects that will improve safety for, vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And then once that plan is solidified, then we'll utilize that to apply for, grant funding, whatever's out there and available.
Through you, Chair, if I could have a follow-up. So then, what is so we're just applying for to be a part of this visionary plan and the comprehensive plan. Is there a breakdown of the percentages of what that grant would be? Is it based off what the estimate of the project's going to be? Is there, because every community is going to have something if they have adopted this, right? So there's a need in every community where it is, and so out of the ranking of these streets or projects, it's all going to be based on a percentage of that and what's available left in the pot and the need?
It will be based on the community and the willingness of the community to push a project forward. Our community, and I believe as well as Lorraine, we're considered disadvantaged, so we do have an advantage when it comes to pulling grant funds from a certain pot of money. I don't know, I can't really say if we would be competing with the other communities, because I think our projects would be, in some cases, they may be similar, but, when we're looking at the townships, I believe their projects are going to be different than what
Right.
type of projects we would be looking here in the city.
And then just one more follow-up, and this will be it. So in regards to the engagement slide, are those all the accidents that have taken place?
Those are,
Like, as far as not fatalities, maybe some are the fatalities, but there are a level of accidents that's happened. And I think that's, I guess what I'm asking is that, I think this has happened up on Cleveland Street, where we were able to utilize some of those road diets because of maybe some accidents highly visible at the corner of like a 57 and Cleveland Street, where that intersection is. There's a high volume of accidents there. Is that the funding mechanism? And I guess that's probably what we're trying to put in place.
that has a big part of it, yes. When you look at the history, and then not just the number of accidents, but the cause of the accidents. So you really need to dig down into, the information that we can obtain. And then from there, plan accordingly, whether or not it's a project, a program, education, actual capital improvements.
Thank you.
And a lot of the accidents were the study that it comes from distracted driving.
Yes. Speeding, speeding is probably the cause for a majority of the accidents. Distracted driving's a huge number. I participate in a fatal crash review committee, and unfortunately, every quarter, we're reviewing 5, 6, 10 accidents. And in many cases, it's speeding or unknown. So, and then in that case, you're figuring there's no reason, there's no outside reason for this crash to take place, especially when it's just like a one-vehicle crash. So chances are it's distracted driving.
I can't tell you how many times I sit at a light and see people fly through the light, but the one that gets me is when they pull up to the light, they look both ways, and they go on red anyway. I've seen it happen a dozen times. So I guess we should be thankful they're at least looking both ways. So, thank you, Kathy. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Madam Chair. So is this something different, or is this an example like when we're driving outside the city where you're like riding towards Sandusky on Route 2 and it's got a safe corridor thing and zero tolerance, if you're speeding, you know, are those things that are put in place and money spent for when they have high accidents in certain areas, or is that something totally different?
That could be one of our systemic practices that becomes a part of this program. I mean, once we won't know until we actually really dive into the corridor and look at what the problem is. And, you know, if it's, maybe it's something like that. I mean, that's possible.
Well, and I think once we started our traffic division in the city of Elyria, I think that didn't accidents and things go down because of, you know, a little bit more law enforcement on the roads and watching, and I know they didn't like getting speeding tickets, but it does help. So I think this is something good, you know, that we should be involved in.
Law Director Deary.
Through you, Madam Chair, Engineer McKillips, so just for purposes of the anticipatory legislation, is there actually an exhibit of the action plan? Is there something that, I guess, public health, I mean, besides the slides, if the slides are sufficient, that's okay. Is there something that needs to be attached to the legislation that's referred to?
We could
Okay.
give you something to
Okay.
attach, yes.
And then as a follow-up to that, is there specific language or a template resolution that's required in order for council to adopt Division Zero and this plan?
I did forward, I can re-forward the template.
Yes,
There is
please.
a draft
Yes.
resolution,
Okay.
is what it is.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. And does this need to be an emergency? I don't know what type of time frame or time restrictions or time
They're hoping to
sensitivity this is.
they're hoping to get all the communities' legislation by the end of March.
Okay.
Mrs. Davis.
Through you, Chair, so is this like a matching grant that we have to come up with something to get this money? Or, so it's the 200,000 is the tops? Because 200,000,
We already have the $200,000 grant. The Lorraine County Health already has that and has been utilizing that grant to help put this plan together.
Okay.
So what we're asking is for legislation to support this plan going forward. And then, once we get into the plan and start working on, you know, specific projects and programs, then we'll use this plan to go out and try to get funding.
okay.
Mr. Armstrong.
Through you, Chair. So you said Engineer, you said they have already been using some of this money to implement plans already. So is that where those check your speed self and the school crossing signs came from? That or you'll see around the city? Because they say like public health on the bottom.
Could be, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Angela McKillips? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of adopting the Vision Zero and the Lorraine County Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. And this is a resolution to adopt Vision Zero and the Lorraine County Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Oswald, second by Mr. Armstrong. Any additional questions?
Question.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. There's nothing else to come before this committee. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
It was moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Please don't leave yet. And at your places, everybody has their street list.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
So does the red mean that those are the ones they're gonna have to finish up? unable to complete